What happens at laser tag never stays at laser tag.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
I feel like you could be like in Ghostbusters or something.
Oh my God, you have got some stories.
Let's talk about laser tag.
Who knew you were a laser tag legend?
Time to get laser unfocused. Tag Talk with Tivia.
Welcome to Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Hi, I'm Tivia. It's clear what a cultural touchstone laser tag is simply by how frequently it appears on the small screen. Today, we're talking tag on TV. Laser tag is, of course, so relevant in pop culture, but it has turned up in really numerous TV shows over the years, and it's really kind of cool every time you see it turn up in a place that you don't expect. So today I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Helton, who is not only a laser tag archivist, so to speak, but a huge enthusiast. And we have both been just binge watching laser tag on TV, and we're going to talk about a few of the places that it has popped up by surprise. So, hey, Jason, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'll tell you, this was so much fun. You had reached out to me a few weeks ago to let me know that laser tag was going to be playing a prominent role in an episode of Starfleet Academy, which, to be perfectly honest, I'd never seen the show, but it gave me a reason to watch the show. And that just kind of got us off on a tear about, where else has laser tag popped up in the small screen? And this has been kind of fun to watch some episodes, see how well they represented, see how close to reality it came, or how far they missed the mark, and thought we could discuss this. So I'm so glad that you brought this topic up. And since Starfleet Academy came from you, I'd love to know if you could just kind of give us a recap of what the episode was about and what your thoughts are on it. It was a recent episode, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, I was just saying the series is brand new. It premiered only about 2 months ago.
Okay.
And it was episode 3. For some reason, it's called in Latin Vitus Reflux, which I no idea what that means. But
it was the name of the plant that showed up in the episode.
Oh, that's right. That's you see now you're on top of it. And so what was neat about this, so we're still just learning our characters. So Starfleet Academy is a new series that takes place in a distant Star Trek future that was seen on a series called Star Trek Discovery for a few seasons, but they never really had a chance to explore it. So now they're doing that through the eyes of youth by having reopened the titular Starfleet Academy now back on Earth and all that kind of stuff. And right from the get-go of the series, you kept hearing mentions about people signing up for clubs, and you'd see banners on the wall for like the Starfleet Academy Laplings, and then you find out as the series goes on that they are doing tryouts for a sport called Calica, which is a combination. It's kind of like a combination training exercise / team sport. And the way it is done is by basically, and in fact, our cadet Sam even says, so we're basically playing laser tag. And it really is. What's, amusing is that it starts off when they're training. It's set to look like a war zone. And so they have explosions and all that kind of stuff going on, to make it look deep and dark and terrifying. And it's probably anybody who's ever owned a laser tag, it's probably what they imagine in their head when they go and try to build something, and then they have to get pulled down into the real world. But the episode culminates with a Calica match between the Starfleet Academy Laplings and the Starfleet War College Mugatos. Yes, they were the Mugatos. And they happened to play in the atrium of Starfleet Academy, which once it was color coded looked a lot like a photon field.
I said that exact thing to myself. Yes, they were picking up on some of those geometric hallmarks of photon for sure.
Absolutely. And it's like you could tell whoever wrote the article or the episode article has played laser tag before, because they got so much of it right.
Yes, yes, they did. So they had some interesting variations, but a lot of it translated to real life, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have to say though, if we ever get it, the idea of getting put out of the game by transporter is like fantastic. Um, so the way it worked in the series is that if you were hit with the other team's phaser, you would be transported instantly to like a penalty box. So people would just basically blank out of existence and then end up in a penalty box whenever
The
they got
equivalent
hit.
of an elimination.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
that far off. I mean, they really got quite a few things right. They clearly stated that the objective was shoot a target on the other side of the field. Got that pretty well.
Yep.
8 players and a mascot and an alternate. Now, the only interesting thing there is the mascot.
You know, I was thinking the exact same thing. Like I loved every aspect of it, and I understand the concept of the mascot. It's so for anybody who hasn't seen it, it is basically a walking base tower. A mascot is basically forced to sit or well to stand in like a designated area with a target being projected over their head when somebody gets in range, and they try to basically dodge shots, which dodging light doesn't really work too well.
But let's be clear, they were not using comparisons of mascots. They were using literal people dressed in costumes as mascots. We had a lizard on one side and a unicorn creature on the other, fully decked out. And when they said mascots, they meant mascots, which
Oh,
you
absolutely.
don't see
And
that
like,
on the field, but everything else sort of was in line beyond that, I thought.
yes, and I do. I
And why
will
don't we
say
see
this:
that on the field? That would be fun.
I would like to see mascots on, in the field. I think Armageddon. I think we need to see some mascots on the field playing. Um, and I have to say the Lapling was hysterical. Like when they came out and showed off that costume, I was dying. I mean, it's just so ridiculous, and the qualification for the mascot being, him being the only one who can fit in the costume is, that kind of lost me on that one, only for the fact that they replicate like uniforms and things like that out of a machine. Why couldn't they make the mascot suit fit whomever they wanted?
Hmm.
That and leaving the mascot defenseless, that's just wrong.
That's right. He needs to have a phaser too. And the phaser, what I was picking up on the most when I was watching the various episodes over the course of this was some episodes use actual laser tag equipment that's manufactured for real life. Some created their own concept. And in this show, what I thought when I saw the phaser was, to me, it looked like a hybrid of Laser Storm and Delta Strike. That was what I picked up on. What did you think?
So because I am the Star Trek nerd that I am, that is actually the standard issue Starfleet hand phaser for
Oh, would
combat.
not have known that. Okay.
But instead of the usual stun and kill settings, now they have stun and transport and things like that. So, to be quite honest, I was never a fan of that phaser until I saw it in this context. I think you're right on the ball with it looking very similar to Laser Storm, especially the early days with the kind of dustbustery looking thing.
Mhm.
The curves of it reminded me of a good old photon phaser. Just
Okay.
a little bit, the longer barrel, it had some sleekness, a little bit of sexy. It was added to the thing.
Well, and I picked up on the diagonal lit lines on each side, which just sort of harkened back to it. It had a feel like the Delta Strike Genesis to me. So
Okay.
that's what I saw in it. But again, a hybrid. It was not an exact version of any of those, but taking a little inspiration from several places. And again, if somebody really had some laser tag knowledge, they incorporated those ideas pretty well, I thought. Um,
Absolutely.
we got to watch a training exercise that happened in a less realistic scenario, but in the atrium, it sure did look like a divided field. They had a red side and a blue side. Other than the mascots wearing the costume, you might have really thought that could have been a game of laser tag. And they use different terminology, of course, but somebody definitely did their homework on that.
And as somebody who has worked in a laser tag on and off for however many years that I've worked in the industry, you do see people try to engage in physical combat. So when when one of the cadets decided to, get a little physical. Yeah, that happens. So
Shouldn't, but sometimes.
it shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also enjoyed the fact that they did use some strategy. Now, one of the points that that was brought up as far as like a plot point was that the guy and the girl, forgive me, I don't know the names,
Darren and Genesis.
really they wanted to be captain of their team. And so at one point, the girl decides to completely buck her captain's advice. She goes rogue and she sets up another strategy where another player is essentially using invulnerability to wipe out the other team. And so again, just some stuff that, yeah, all right, you're not going to be wiping out a team with that, but the principles at play, they got a lot of things right that I could see actually coming to play in a game. And so that was very cool. I'm glad that you suggested it because that is not a series I had any familiarity with. And I was pleased to see how they did it.
It's been a fun series, as I actually got the privilege of going up to New York for the premiere of the series. And what, in tying this back to laser tag and Star Trek, what I noticed very much was the cast hanging out with each other, having a grand old time, like they had been friends forever. And it's like, I've seen enough laser tag to know, like, when you have a good group or a good team, it was nice. It was a little bit of a family, kind of environment, kind of just like a really good laser tag is.
That's awesome. So yeah, I really liked that episode, and it was a good starting point for this whole idea. And you and I compared some lists, and there's quite a few other shows. So another one that you brought up that I had not seen this episode before. Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of the Laser Maze.
Ah, yes.
So, for anybody who grew up in the 90s, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. That's like a mantra at the beginning of those episodes. So this was kind of a cool thing to see. And it starts with the premise of two hyper-competitive twin sisters. And I must say, the premise went a little off the rails. It wasn't quite as on the money as the other episode. But would you like to share your thoughts on a synopsis of that?
So, what was interesting about that, and I think it was a product of its time. So, for the uninitiated, Are You Afraid of the Dark was an anthology show. So basically, new cast, new crew every time, But interestingly enough, Ryan Gosling got his start on that show and several other famous people. But I think if we look at that era of laser tag, you had the facilities that had gone all out and had spent $500,000 on their field. And then you also had the facilities that were like cardboard walls shoved in the corner of a roller rink, and so, I think there was a missed opportunity. It felt to me like the creators of this episode were not necessarily fans of laser tag. It's, the vibe I got was they took their kids to a laser tag birthday party and their kid told them how cool it was. And so they decided to make an episode out of it. The equipment, I mean, the show is produced in Canada. And we all know that Canada has a good contingent of laser tag back then and now. But what was fascinating is just, the ideas for like the equipment was so bad.
Now I'm going to offer an opposing viewpoint, but I want to let you finish your thought on that.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it reminded me of, I played a laser tag at the Mystery Fun House in Florida.
Okay.
Back in like 1980 something. And the way it worked was you were wearing a vest that basically was just reflecting light back to your gun. And that, basically you were shooting yourself to get points based off of this reflection. And it was very cheap and it felt very like duct taped together. And this equipment reminded me of that. The very nondescript vest that looks like it, was worn by a villain on Mork and Mindy. The glasses were a nice touch.
Okay, I disagree with that also. So we have differing opinions.
Yes.
Finish your thoughts, but I'm going to I'm going to voice a different opinion on that.
I mean, the concept of the glasses being something involved in the game, and
Well, actually, you know what? It's not that far from what we might see evolve. So,
Mhm.
yeah, glasses were involved instead of actually having a phaser. And in this world of meta and AI, and I do believe whoever comes to have the artificial intelligence come into play with laser tag first is going to be the next one to make the big jump.
Mhm.
So it's not that far fetched. I disliked that they didn't have a phaser,
Absolutely.
but when you talk about the packs, and I had to just kind of remind myself of something here. So the note that I made when I looked at the pack was that, in spite of the fact that there was no phaser, what I took away was that the vests looked to me like a hybrid of laser maze and plasma force. Now, those are two very obscure references that if you want to find out more, lasertagmuseum.com. But no, those were the two things that I saw like as an inspiration to the vest. And what went through my mind first was, and I went back to photos while I was watching the episode, I wondered if it was at all possible that somebody had actually seen the brand Laser Maze and that had anything to do with the title. Probably didn't, but you never know who sees what. And there was a laser maze completely unrelated that had an affiliation, I believe, with Laser Runner in Canada, but that is a different laser maze than the one that I'm talking about. So probably I'm reading way too much into this.
Well, I may have an explanation for you on that.
Okay, shoot.
Because this was Nickelodeon in the 90s, because we were starting to see the beginning of school shootings and things like that, they may have tried to distance themselves from the laser tag aspect of the game by calling it a laser maze, by not including a gun or a phaser or something like that.
Okay.
Um, to make it seem less combat oriented, so that the parents who let their kids stay up a little bit late on Saturday night to watch, Nickelodeon to watch the show wouldn't necessarily see kids running around with guns and,
Well,
so.
you know what? The thought process behind that, very possible. Um, again, the glasses just to me didn't quite say laser tag, but the vest sure did bear a resemblance to plasma force as well. So again, kind of what I saw was what I interpreted as a hybrid of two systems, but those two systems, I think probably highly unlikely that that was anything more than coincidence, but hey, you just never know. So I liked the vest because it made me really have to think, because it definitely looked familiar to me, even though it wasn't real.
Hey, that,
So,
I mean,
those
it
were my
definitely
take on the
screamed
equipment.
80s. It definitely screamed 80s, early 90s tech of what's going to look like science fiction,
Mhm. And it was
certainly.
a science fiction episode. The premise
Yep.
really had very little to do with laser tag. It had to do with making replicate cyborgs of these two twins and sending them in as battle replicants. And so yeah, some really cheesy promoter guy was executing all this, and it comes to a happy ending at the end, and everybody
Course.
comes together in nice loving morals.
Of
So
course.
it ended like
They all
Nickelodeon
learned a
shows
lesson
should.
at the end of the day.
Yes, be nice to your sister. So, yeah, the sisterly bond came together, the respect of working together instead of against each other, and don't take life and competition so seriously, is I think the takeaway from that episode.
Which makes it even more unrealistic, because you and I both know enough laser tag tournament players to know that, competition's everything.
Oh, yeah, especially with a sibling. So,
Absolutely.
oh, but we can jump from the competitive aspect of the sibling versus sibling to We Bear Bears, a cartoon that I had not heard of until checking out your list. So they played an episode of Laser Royale, and I must admit, I only found a snippet of this on YouTube. So the gist that I got of it was that there were three cartoon bears playing laser tag in hopes of winning ice cream. Did I
That's
basically
exactly
sum
what
that
it
up well
was.
enough?
It was the only reason why I even knew about this one was because my kids were in that perfect age demographic when it first came out. And so they would watch it, and then I happened to see, oh, there's a laser tag episode of, the Bears, and so the only
So
reason
this
why
is
I
a
remember
children's show. This is not a cartoon designed for adults where there's, anything questionable. This is truly just heartwarming little bears for kids.
exactly,
Okay.
sometimes they will throw a little bit of humor that, a father may or mother may chuckle at, but it's not, it's more of a reference than it is, like really trying to be, have any adult humor. It was just a feel good, fun little episode. And I will say, I think all laser tags should offer ice cream for the victors.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you think about
Dippin'
it, you
Dots,
burn the
mini melts,
calories
any of the
off.
above. Yes.
I mean, you burned off the calories. Why not have a little bit of soft serve at the exit? You get your scorecard, you get your soft serve. I think we're missing out. There's a market that is being massively ignored right now, and I think now's the time to fix that.
Yes. And wouldn't it be awesome if we got a mascot costume of a bear to serve you the ice cream? So
Ooh, even better. And then, obviously, as the sport devolves over the centuries, now we have a mascot for Calica.
there you go. That's how it happened. Okay, so so We Bear Bears was like the prequel to Starfleet Academy.
It could very well be. I could see. Right now there's like 8.5 million Star Trek fans who are like, angrily typing at their typewriters that We Bear Bears is not canon. But
Yeah, 8.5 million people are watching my podcast.
see, I'm trying to hype you up. I mean, we can all dream.
Maybe I got 8.
Hey, you know what? I love all
Million.
8.
But no, it was
Bear Bears
it was
sweet,
cute what I
and it was
saw. And again, it's animated. So, okay, we weren't really going for reality there, but I was on a tear trying to make comparisons to real life. So I looked at the phaser that was drawn and I said, okay, that resembles either Laser Plus or Laser Reality. And I was really stretching on that. So, for what it's worth.
And I think that was also another case where they tried not to make it look weapon-like, or try to make it as ambiguous and safe as possible, just so parents wouldn't have anything to complain about.
Yes, it was rounded. It sort of looked like a pickle. So
Yep.
there you go. All right. Another animated episode that went in a different direction was Family Guy.
Oh, yes, Family Guy.
Okay, so Peter and Brian the dog leave family night. They abandon the family and they go off to play laser tag.
Yes, with their friend, their eclectic group of friends. So we have the insurmountable Quagmire. We have the police sergeant who lives next door, whose name escapes me in this moment, but who happens to be wheelchair bound, which I think is actually I actually have a really good connection with that, or point to make about that. Okay. And of course, Brian and I forget who else was in that scene, but yeah, going to the local laser tag, obviously on a Friday or Saturday night, obviously to do a little bit of bunny hunting. It's I think they picked the night that they went very well so that they could, go after children, which any adult who plays laser tag and knows that, they can provide a target rich environment. But I thought it got the majority of it pretty well.
Well, there was one thing that they did not get correct, and I don't know the right way to address it, but the first thing I thought when they had the vest going on the guy, on Peter, they put the vest on, and I thought, oh, well, that sort of resembles his own vest. And then they attached it. They attached it in a non-conventional way. And maybe that's all we have to say about it. But it just seemed like, okay, they're really trying to put some risque humor into the animation without saying anything. But it was like unnecessary. Yeah, just put the vest on the guy, send him out. It didn't change the story at all. It just made me feel uncomfortable for a moment.
Well, and you know what? One of the things that that I will bring up with that is as a guy who is of the larger size, it's nice when you go to a laser tag that is accommodating for that kind of thing. When I worked for Zone, we had extra straps, Photon, we had extra straps and things like that that helped out. So, I think they actually addressed a real problem with that in terms of inclusivity.
Okay,
Um,
I'm just going to remind you that the scene did not really focus on the largeness of the
I
guy.
know.
It focused on how to take the strap from one side of the body to the other. And
And
it
yeah,
it fit like a bodysuit. If we're going
that
to
is
reference
true.
the 90s, you've probably never worn one of those bodysuits. Let me just tell you, they are freaking uncomfortable. And that the way they animated that laser tag back looked like it would be uncomfortable.
Yes. And
Okay, so watch YouTube if you want to find out what we're talking.
exactly. But you know what? I mean, it is an issue that some players face.
Okay, you know what? Size of a pack, sure,
Mhm.
could be. Most of the companies have, adjustable options, but you're
Yep.
absolutely right that if you want to be serious about that scene, and if it were just a pack without them trying to be humorous, yeah, I could see your point. Sometimes you have to accommodate for size.
But I also love the fact that the wheelchair-bound police officer was able to play. When I worked at Ultrazone in Baltimore, they specifically made the ramps and corridors large enough to support a wheelchair. And
Mhm.
there was many a summer day camp where I was pushing a child in a wheelchair throughout the arena. And it was nice to see that inclusivity.
I agree with that. Absolutely. And, having inclusivity with characters with whatever they're doing, go them.
Yep.
They also had something that while we're coming up with suggestions for operators, I love the idea of ice cream served by bear mascots. But the other thing that I really liked in this episode was that you could purchase as a souvenir, as Peter did, a fake newspaper with a laser tag victory photo. And I'm like, if I could get one of those for my wall, I sure would buy that.
I cannot believe no operators have done this. I mean, can you imagine just the birthday party add-ons?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. As a
Yeah, I
collector
mean,
of all things tag swag, I would definitely think that,
absolutely.
print that in, you come up with a template, you've got a printer in the back, you take the kid's photo.
Easy peasy.
Um, Little
But
Johnny saves the universe. It's perfect.
absolutely, especially if you go to like one of those tags that has a little bit of a storyline or some lore to it. Oh, it's even better, just really dig it. But I will say this, most people don't, most of the youth of the today aren't going to know what a newspaper is, sadly.
Okay,
Um,
so you and I would buy the souvenir. The parents would,
damn
would be
right.
the ones who want it. But you're absolutely right, I guess, on that front.
Yep, yep,
But
yep.
but
So
I thought that that was a very clever idea, and it, the fake newspaper ended up on Peter's wall and showed up throughout. So I just thought, they
there,
worked that well.
there has to be an operator out there. In fact, somebody email Laurie and like, if you own a laser tag and do that, let her know so that I can go and visit and get my
Oh
face
gosh,
on the board.
yes. I'm looking for places to travel to, by all means. Hit me up with the great ideas you've got, something creative. I might be headed your way.
There you go.
Uh, well, yeah. So Family Guy, they got a few things right, a few things a little off the mark, but not too bad overall, and some good stuff going on there. Now, the episode of Castle, I did not see the full episode, so I have very little context to this. But Nathan Fillion plays against his daughter at home when a detective shows up, and he is using Zone Helios CE equipment. It's very obviously they're using real equipment in this one. Um,
Aside from the
so,
glasses,
did they have glasses in this one?
did with like a little like Boba Fett style like targeting thing that would go down over one
Okay.
eye, if I remember correctly.
Okay. The first thing that I thought was you'd never be using that at home, but but I don't know what Castle's about. I mean, maybe this guy is wealthy enough to have a laser tag in his home for all I know.
Well, he was a wealthy man. He was an author. It was
Okay.
his big thing. Who consulted with the police to get ideas for his books, and he ended up solving all these crimes, kind of thing. But it reminded me of back in my middle school days when we all had that one kid in school who said that, well, my dad or my uncle owns a laser tag. It reminded me of that. Like, yeah, we can go over to Mr. Castle's house and play laser tag, even though that is an expensive arena. I mean, he had a quarter apartment in like Midtown, so it's expensive right there. Actually, if he had a quarter apartment in Midtown, he could afford a couple zone vests. But yeah, there wasn't much to that episode, surrounding laser tag. It was more of just like oh, look, Richard Castle is, kind of funny and he likes to play laser tag with his daughter because he is a 12-year-old at heart with lots of money and can own this stuff. But, um, it was, I will say that's probably one of the weaker representations on this list, only for the fact that it just wasn't creative. It was a money flex.
Well, whatever the reason was that they included it in the episode, I'm glad they did, because the actual vest that was used in that episode ended up in the Laser Tag Museum collection. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check out the Hollywood collection, again, at lasertagmuseum.com. But yeah, it got signed by Nathan Fillion and Molly, the other actress.
Molly Quinn. Yep.
Molly Quinn. So yeah, so kind of just a cool little piece of laser tag history there, salvaged from the show, which was awesome.
I believe I got to touch it last time I was in the archives. It was nice.
Very
It's
cool.
been a very long time since I've been in the archives, but
Now, another episode that I only saw a little snippet of was NCIS. And there were, well, actually, I saw two pieces of this. Maybe you can fill in some gaps for me. I saw a moment where there was just a reference to laser tag, that the guy was supposed to take a mandatory active shooter course, which he said, oh, laser tag. And they didn't show it, so I can't say that they got it right or wrong, unless what I saw in the next clip happened to be that. But the next clip that I saw was of an actual laser tag arena, and they were definitely playing either Gen 6 or 7 of Laser Force. So I took it to be two separate ideas of laser tag that were included in NCIS, but am I right on that, or did I miss something big by only watching two clips?
so I had to look it up because I was never an NCIS fan. My wife could probably quote every episode. So apparently the plot of the episode, it's in season 8, episode 16. It's an episode called Kill Screen, referencing all of those video game high score people like Steve Wiebe and God, I know the guy, and I'm forgetting his name. The guy who has the world record for Donkey Kong, or did for a time. Um, I'm doing him a disservice because I like have him in my phone and I haven't talked to him in years, and I'm forgetting his name. But essentially, they're investigating a murder that leads them, to this laser tag where this suspect is playing. And then, of course, we do find out at some point that Agent McGee is quite well known at the at said laser tag, even in fact going by his alias of McGeeminator, which is
I like that.
awful.
No, that's awesome.
McGeeminator?
Yes.
Everybody's got an aider. I mean, it's like that seems like one of those 12-year-old like names. But
I like an aider at the end. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you, I was just this past weekend at the Idaho Potato Museum, and they will give free taters to out-of-staters.
okay, I can see that.
McGeeninator.
Now,
Okay,
apparently, laser tag does show up again on NCIS, and I never knew about this. I'm just reading the synopsis right now. In an episode in season 13, episode 21, Return to Sender, features a murder at a laser tag facility.
Okay, I wonder if that's the one where they were playing the Force system, because they definitely, that was very clearly actual laser tag gear being used in that episode too.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and I think I'm combining the two of them in my head, Like,
Okay, I want to go back and watch the full episode now. Now I'm intrigued. So NCIS is going to be on my watch list later tonight.
yep. But I mean, the thing about it is that it was more of a plot point and not so much, it wasn't focused on laser tag. Laser tag essentially makes a glorified cameo. And of course, it's used to make jokes at McGee's expense, highlighting the fact that he's a nerd, which I take great offense to, only for the fact that at 47 years old, I love a game of laser tag. I don't care if my kids are playing. And I have no mercy for anybody who's in there, if they can play, they're a target. And, so the idea of making fun of poor Agent McGee just because he enjoys a game of laser tag now and then is offensive. CBS, do better.
Okay. I did not catch that piece of the puzzle, so I'll take your word for it. So I missed it, so I wasn't offended. But I did get excited when I saw actual gear in use on the TV. So, and I got even more excited about the recent episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty, which is I think a new one on you. And it was one, I don't know the characters. I haven't been following this series, but I recently did a podcast episode with a couple of my coworkers. So if you caught that, the story behind that is I have two coworkers who I took for their very first laser tag experience. One of them is Listen, It's Liz, and she is a content creator and a podcaster and a radio host. And she is really into a lot of eclectic things. And she found this TV show and she had seen laser tag on the screen. And so she made a video of our experience using the same song that was in the TV show. So I said, well, I have to look this up. Liz knows about laser tag. And when I saw the episode, immediately I recognized it. Immediately I recognized, even though, the fictional storyline is that this group of kids were visiting an arcade. What I picked up on right away was that this was Laser Force Gen 7 being used in an arena I had played several times, Jungle Rapids in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Nice. I was going to ask you, was this in a real place? Because
it
I
absolutely
know you've
was.
seen more arenas than anyone. And so I was curious if you had recognized the facility, but.
Yes, I sure did. I did my homework to make sure I was absolutely correct on that. But yeah, no, I knew that I had seen the archway that they showed. I went back to my own blog photos to compare and contrast, and sure enough, everything was exactly as I remembered it. And I had played there. I had a great time at that arena.
I'm impressed. I mean, that's some hardcore journalism. You're getting your story, one way or another. I like that. But no,
now in the show, they made up their own format rules. They came up with this is how you play laser tag, but that aside.
What better system to do that on than Force? Because if I remember, it's been ages since I've played Force, but I remember it being very customizable. In terms of rules. I remember playing like special games like Space Marines and their like photon, kind of style game and all that. So that's nice. I like that they tried something a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't think that they necessarily endorse, though, lifting an opponent up and swinging her around.
No, save that for the Calica field. I'm just going to keep dropping Calica references randomly here. No, and having worked at enough laser tags, I have seen people get thrown, and usually there's alcohol involved. But I think
we're not endorsing, we're just explaining what we saw on TV.
Exactly. So parents, do not let your kids, when they go to a laser tag birthday party, no suplexes, no stone cold stunners or things like that.
But I really enjoyed that because it really spoke to me because I had played there. And so it was really cool to see an actual arena that was not just a soundstage, but they really played there. So
nice.
One that obviously was a soundstage, though, was the green base where all the action happens for the entire episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's the episode called Waiting for Big Mo. And the whole premise behind this episode is that they're waiting for a little kid named Big Mo, who is the serious competitor, and they are going to just hang out in the green base and defend it. I guess I shouldn't be critical of defending your base, but the whole episode happened in the base.
It did. And, you know, a briefing room with a sign up that said base, because sorry, bases don't have benches, but good try.
But if only they did, for those of us who are, we get tired by the end of the night. Get a bench in the base.
Okay, operators, that's another thing. We need schools or something, us old people, if you want to keep getting money from us, we need a place to sit. Water fountain inside of the base. I think, we'll make this, geriatric friendly for, 20 years from now. No, I mean, the thing about it is yes, absolutely. We have all been shoved into a base trying to do base defense. What I loved about this episode, and I do not generally watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but I loved the delight on Danny DeVito's character, running around with, we're going out and, he's having a great time and he's doing great. Nobody can hit him. And, spoiler warning, nobody can hit him because they basically set him up to sandbag by not activating his pack so that he wouldn't destroy their score. Which I actually felt really terrible for him. Like, I was rewatching these clips last night. It's been a rough couple of weeks. And so I'm watching, I'm like, that really makes me sad that the poor Danny DeVito just wants to run around and go pew, pew, and they didn't let him. Although him getting excited at his pack getting powered up when they, burn him a second time was just like, again, just the utter childlike delight on his face that, I liked that a lot.
Well, and something that I really enjoyed was watching him leave the arena in his pack, go get chicken wings and bring them back and eat them at the base.
Now, another thing for operators, you can prevent that from happening by having small chicken wing facilities inside of the bases as well.
Put him right next to the bench. Yeah,
exactly. Nowadays, this industry, you have to do everything you can to stand out. I think that's how you do it.
This is how you do your food and beverage with your social gaming.
Absolutely.
Now, they had some realistic things about tag and some less realistic things. They were using the zone. It looked to me like Nexus. It could have possibly been Helios CE, but it looked like Nexus to me. And they were playing Nexus with helmets. So what purpose for the helmets? I that was a distraction to me. I didn't think that was necessary.
If memory serves, and I may be completely wrong, but I worked for Zone for many years at the Baltimore location, and I seem to remember in opening up, because we had the version 2 packs, or like version 2 or version 3, before they started putting letters instead of numbers on them. And I seem to remember one of the boards having an external port that would connect a helmet.
Really?
I think at one point they may have designed those old school boards to do that if they wanted to expand on it, but never did, because who really wanted to have a helmet on their head? But I seem to remember on like the schematic or on one of the boards, and it may have been, we were always holding things together with duct tape and bubble gum. It may have been we had found a old version 1 CPU and we were trying to make it work with a pack or something like that. But I distinctly remember there being something. I may be completely wrong.
I have never seen a helmet with that gear. I mean,
and I don't think a helmet was ever.
Worlds of Wonder had helmets, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. But
I don't think a helmet was ever developed. I think they had just built the port on there in case they ever wanted to.
Which seems a little bit of a techie fact for the writers to have been aware of. So I think the helmets were just a goofy accessory that somebody thought looked like laser tag.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, plus putting Danny DeVito, who's no offense to the man, but he's kind of like a squat meatball, kind of, running around. Putting a helmet on top of his head just makes it even better. He reminded me of like a Weeble Wobble, those old toys. It was comedy genius.
Well, I made the note and I just followed up with why? Why do that? But yeah, all right. It's a little humorous. And you can't take everything as gospel out of this episode, because there were other things that were not quite the way you would play them for real. Like at the end, when Big Mo, who's probably about 3 feet, a kid of all of 8 years old, maybe, is Big Mo. Big Mo comes in after they have theoretically abandoned the base. And boy, that's a good feeling when you find an empty base. But
It is.
it didn't stay empty for long. Big Mo comes in. He looks up. It's not a zone base. It is, I don't know what it is, but it's decorative. It's not a real anything to tag. But it doesn't matter because he doesn't get to tag the base. They come rushing in at him. And the part that is far less realistic, but much more theatrical, is that they're all tagging him. And by tagging this one kid all at the same time, they are making the lights go crazy on the vest. And it's like, you didn't deactivate anything now, did you there?
No.
You just made it bigger.
Had they been playing Tron, I could see that. Because I think, what was it? Tron, you could take multiple hits before you would go down. So
But the lights just went crazy on the pack.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was very theatrical and not how laser tag goes at all. But it was a dramatic finale, so kudos for
wherever
using
you
real
are,
gear.
you'll be remembered.
Mhm. Now, one of my favorites has always been How I Met Your Mother, and laser tag shows up several times throughout this series. It's not always the same laser tag, so we've got to wonder if Barney is going to multiple sites or if the site has upgraded. But season 1, Barney takes Robin out to play laser tag, and they are wearing laser runner vests and having a good old time with that. And then things change. Well, not it doesn't change, but they were having fun, but the equipment changes midstream. And but when I saw those vests the first time, I was so excited, so happy to see again real equipment being used on the scene.
As a former Laser Runner owner, yes, it was delightful to see the old gear on there. I'm going to go with the idea of Barney probably plays everywhere, because I forget what the exact quote was, but he was calling his one friend who had stayed at home and let him know that there's nothing more important or fun than playing laser tag, which I think has been my mantra, definitely yours, for quite some time now. So,
Oh yeah.
but no, I think he's a frequent flyer. My head canon is that he bounces around all over the place and is well known at all the sites.
Well, that seems fair. And makes sense because it's not too many seasons later. I know in season 4, I see him getting banned from laser tag for life for playing too rough, but he's playing rough using infusion. And I don't know if it's the same episode or not, because again, this pops up several times throughout the show, but he is definitely playing infusion when he is on the phone with Ted saying, "Suit up, bud." And I know this because he's playing it one-handed. You don't do that. Come on,
No,
Barney, you know better.
absolutely. If he is as seasoned a laser tag player as he ascribed himself to be, he knows you're not, unless you're playing Photon, you're not using one hand.
Mhm. And during this episode, if you look carefully at the back, while they're doing a good cop, bad cop kind of thing in the manager's office, but if you look at the scenery around, there is a high scoreboard in that office, and it's just Stinson, 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 like 100 times. He's the only score on the board.
And the sad thing is banning him is a bad idea, because obviously the guy, like, he has money and likes to spend it playing laser tag. You don't want to alienate your adult customers over something as minor as a little bit of roughing.
Now, at the same time, though, you don't want members who are going to make it unpleasant for 20 other people.
That is true.
So there's a fine line between the one guy who will pay you all the money in the world to have his name on the board 20 times
Yes.
versus the 20 kids who will bring all their friends back.
This did, though, add something on my bucket list, which is to be able to one day play laser tag with NPH himself. I think,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
would that not be the most fun thing to do ever?
Absolutely. You have no idea how many times I have looked up where is there a Neil Patrick Harris meet and greet. I want him to sign some laser tag.
Absolutely. Forget sign. I want to play. I want him to shoot.
I want to play too. Oh my gosh. And can I tell you, if ever we see him at a convention, I got to tell you, I have taken home laser tag to fan conventions and gotten to play little mini rounds at a booth with a couple of celebs. Got to play with Ming Chen, played at his booth at one. Robbie Rist, who was one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
He was also in Battlestar
Ryan
Galactica's
Posehn.
horrible sequel. Yeah, I knew Robbie Rist.
Ryan Posehn from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all at a convention together, and I was honestly sort of surprised that they allowed me to bring it in, but they did, and all the celebs thought it was really cool. So if ever we see Neil Patrick Harris appearing somewhere, give us heads up. We'll put that out into the ether and say maybe we'll
have to go make a
find him
flight out to wherever that
tag.
is. I have got to play laser tag with NPH.
That'd be very cool. So, and there were more episodes where we see little bits and pieces of laser tag. It was a running theme during that show, so definitely very cool. Now, 2.5 Men. The episode is called "Alan Shot a Little Girl." And it just so happens that I have the script to that episode right here.
Okay, asking ye shall receive.
And you know what? That's exactly what it was. Alan shot a little girl. No. This is later in the series, so some of the characters have kind of changed. This is towards the point where honestly I feel like the series sort of jumped the shark. I was okay with the Walden character replacing Charlie Sheen for a stretch, but at the point where they adopted the kid, it felt like the Cousin Oliver syndrome, which is ironic because Robbie Rist was also Cousin Oliver.
Yep.
But by the time the kid Lewis makes his way into the series, I feel like it's losing some steam. But the premise behind this is that Alan and Walden have adopted a young boy, and the kid convinces Alan to take him to laser tag, even though this is breaking Walden's rules. So it's a very deep episode.
That is, and it kind of hits home only for the fact that we had a laser tag 30 minutes from my house, and only time I ever got to go was for birthday parties. So yeah, I feel you, kid.
But another episode where they had actual equipment in use. They were playing the Zone Helios CE in this episode, and Lewis bumps his head, which is really no fault of anybody's other than Alan letting him run around when he wasn't supposed to, but that's not laser tag's fault. But where the episode gets its name is that, okay, the kid has just bumped his head. He needs attention. And Alan does not immediately stop playing the game. Instead, Alan shot a little girl, hence the title. And then
fair, I think I'm guilty of that.
and everything is fine. But the main thing is he's breaking the rules that Walden had set.
I think I'm guilty of that, though, of making sure my kids were okay while still laying down suppressing fire or something, so but good times.
Yeah. So that was the last full episode that I saw. Now, I did just make note of 2 episodes of a couple of animated series that I did not I could not find them again to make sure my memory was correct. So somebody might correct me on some of this, but I know The Simpsons had an episode where there was a flashback, and the premise behind it is that Homer's dad owns a laser tag, and Homer helps Marge pay for college by working at his father's business, Simpson Laser Tag.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't remember that at all. It must have happened during that period between The Simpsons being the funniest thing and then you outgrowing it and then moving on to like South Park or something. But
Which also it was on my list as having had some laser tag, and we also couldn't find this again. So, I mean, it's out there, but we just we didn't spend enough time on it last night, I guess.
but I
But there
think one
was
of
an episode where Kyle wanted to go play laser tag instead of doing something else. And I don't even remember what the something else was, but it was probably not appropriate for four little kids in South Park.
probably. But I think that this also does show there's plenty of room for laser tag in pop culture. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think we need to see more of it because you know even after with games and VR and things like that, there's still nothing that compares to putting on a pack that smells a little bit too much like the guy who wore it before you, and walking in and smelling that fog juice, and the little bit of uncertainty and the guilty pleasure it is of shooting a little girl. It's I think we need to spread the word a little bit more. I think we need to see more shows, do some laser tag stuff.
Well, I think it's amazing that in short order we were able to just compile this list, and I'm sure that that is not exclusive by any stretch. But we had a good better than 10 episodes to discuss right there. So at this point, let's rate them and see which ones did the best with it.
Okay.
Scale of 1 to 10, which ones? How close did they get it to real life? How well did they do it? I know this is your baby here, but how on that scale 1 to 10 would you rank the reality behind Starfleet Academy?
You know, um, it was good. It was not perfect. Um, I was bothered. While it did tell me the difference between permeous and oh God, now I'm forgetting the words. Between porous and permeable. Um,
Very relevant in laser tag.
yeah, very yeah. Um, I felt that, Sam doing her little like cheesy invulnerability thing was kind of a turnoff. I would, it did a great job of portraying what the game looks like and the competitiveness, and the equipment was definitely cool. But I'd give it around a 7.
Okay. Let's say 7 for Starfleet Academy. Are you afraid of the dark? I feel like we're both going to be kind of in agreement that that is not at the top of the list here.
Oh no.
Um, I would say maybe a 3 at best.
I think you're being generous. I think you know, there was much more cheese in those scenes than there was laser tag. I'm gonna, it's I'm gonna be benevolent and say it's a 2.
Okay. I'm okay with calling it a 2. They tried. We bears, I think, are going to fare a little bit better.
They are. I mean, if we are rating this based off of accuracy, they're pretty high up there.
Yeah, I mean, they had ideas we liked.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I'd say, are we having ties? Because they're up there with Starfleet Academy. I don't think they beat Starfleet Academy, but I think they do a really good job. I'm going to say a 6.
okay, we'll go with the 6. Family Guy.
Aside from the little bit of trash humor, which I gotta like trash humor occasionally, um, they did a really good job. Um, you know, the it felt a lot like laser tag to me. And in fact, when I was doing archival work for a project, seeing that, I thought it was absolutely hysterical, even without the jokes. Just seeing, them go through. I will say, it was hard to suspend disbelief when you had like craters and things like that like people could pop up out of. Um, but we can all shoot for something. I'm going to bring that in at probably a 9.
Okay. I would have said an 8, but I'll settle with a 9. Okay. How about Castle? They used real
Castle,
gear, but
real gear, but nobody's playing. Okay, let's be fair. Some of us had like the Worlds of Wonder sets and the Photon sets. They were nothing like the real thing. Why would you go out and spend $5,000 a pack to be able to play the game in your 1,000 square foot apartment that's filled with antiquities? You know, number one. And sorry, I have never been a fan of like the one-on-one game. You know, it was boring. It's great equipment. I love my zone equipment, but in terms of being good laser tag, I'm gonna say it's probably like a 2 or a 3.
Okay. I'm going to give it the generosity of a 3, I think. So, because I feel like that was at least a better representation than Are You Afraid of the Dark? So we gave that a
Yes.
2. I feel like Castle needs to at least be a 3. NCIS, actual arena, actual gear.
It was a plot point. It was so secondary to the episode. It was kind of more of a cameo than it was anything else. Um, had we seen, you know, the McGeeminator, going into virtual combat or something, it may have gotten a little bit more. You're right. It was a real arena, real equipment. I think it really just wasn't that great. I'm going to give that guy a 5.
Okay.
Right in the middle. Accuracy was there. Just didn't do much of anything to push things on.
Okay. And since I didn't see the full episode, I will defer to your judgment on that one. And although I still didn't see the full episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty, the one that was filmed in an actual arena that I had played, and I can vouch for the accuracy of that, besides the fact that the girl made up a few rules, I want to give this one a 10. I feel like this,
Wow.
I don't know how you could get more realistic than what I saw there, except by playing laser tag.
And I have to go and watch this. Now I'm intrigued. But I think anytime that we show laser tag in a real environment, not hyped up, not overkill, is nice, because this is a hard industry to make it in, and to show what it really looks like without having to glamorize it, or somebody could go from who's seen that episode of that show, walk into that arena, pay their $7, go play a game, and have almost the exact same experience. And it's also kind of cool to sit there and say, you get to play laser tag where so and so did, and so I think, while I haven't seen it, I will defer to your judgment. But off of what you describe, I think you are right on the right track.
That's the one that really did it the most for me. But I certainly did enjoy It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But where do we put that on a realism scale? Chicken wings coming into the arena, benches to sit on at the base, making more lights come on when you tag someone.
That, and having, I've worked in enough laser tags to know that, you're watching to make sure all the packs are on. Anybody worth their salt working at your laser tag should see the person with the dark pack and be like, hey buddy, come here, and start them up, or say there's a problem with your pack, or change their battery, or whatever it may be that's causing them not to be able to actively play.
Or more importantly, keep the greasy food away from the pack.
That too. Having worked on those packs before, grease would just make it worse. So the humor of the episode brings it up to like a 6, because they were talking just like laser tag players, wanting to get their score, wanting to, make sure that, somebody doesn't screw up their game. But, I don't think there was much beyond that.
Okay.
And the real equipment was nice, though.
Yeah. Although the helmets, I still question.
Yes.
Okay. How I Met Your Mother, the conglomeration of the various pieces of laser tag popping up. How do we feel about this?
If I were to question you on anything, it would be about this taking the top spot, because the love that is on his face, Barney's face, when he's playing or when he's trying to get people to play, it reminds me of like with my friend group back in like high school or college, like, hey guys, you want to go play laser tag? It's really fun. And they're like looking at me like I'm 12. I can relate to that man
I can
right
too.
off the bat. And they used real equipment. He's obviously an experienced player if he has all those high scores on that board. He obviously has played multiple systems, and so I think he's the real laser tag fan out of all of these people. And I think for that, he deserves a 9 or a 10.
I'd be okay with giving him a 10. I mean, laser tag, when I think about laser tag on TV, How I Met Your Mother is immediately what comes to mind.
Absolutely.
And that's because it wasn't that it was contrived, it was steadily threaded through the episodes. It came up all the time, even if you didn't see it. One episode, they're talking about all the lies that he tells, and Lily was saying, "Oh yeah," and he said he was like third place in the laser tag tournament. Oh wait, that wasn't a lie. I was there. you know, just stuff like
Yep.
that all throughout the series. So I would be good with giving this a 10 because
Yeah.
it is more than one piece of a puzzle for sure.
And I think what we can look at too is looking at all of these from a distance. There are some shows that used it as a gag, as clown shoes.
Hmm.
It's hey, we're going to show how nerdy McGee is by saying he goes and plays laser tag even though he's in his 30s. Okay, fine, whatever. Family Guy does decently with the gag because it's honestly funny with laser tag tropes for a lot of it, but in so many of them it is a throwaway plot device just to make a punchline or set up a joke or set up a murder or whatever. I think the ones that really do pay homage to it are going to be the top four that we mentioned.
Hmm.
And as much as I do love my Starfleet Academy, it was the prettiest iteration of laser tag I've ever seen. But until we can do that in real life, transport when we get hit, then it's not going to win on the realism scale for me.
Okay. How about Two and a Half Men?
I don't remember that episode, but based off of your description, it tracks. We always had the adults, who were running around trying to pair their child back up with them because their child, who is probably a little bit too young to be playing or is a little bit too scared of the dark to be playing, matching them up with their parent who has gone, full Rambo. Um, that tracks, and that adds a lot of realism to it. That's probably brings it up into the 6, 7, 8 range.
I'm feeling like an 8
Yeah, I can agree with that.
because the story has realism to it as well as the real gear. I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah.
Now, the last two that were just sort of mentions, but we didn't really remember as much about, The Simpsons and South Park. I kind of call those honorable mentions because I cannot remember anything going on in The Simpsons laser tag other than Homer having a job. And I don't remember, but I don't think we actually saw the South Park laser tag. I think that might have just been an idea.
And if we did, it was going to be over the top and not realistic because the whole point would be to make it embarrassing or to make it part of the joke's punchline,
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think those are honorable mentions. But yeah.
Okay. So we've given some rankings, and of course, we like our scoreboards. We like to know the winners. And I think we're in
Always has to be a
agreement
winner.
that, well, we have a tie 10 and 10 for The Summer I Turned Pretty and How I Met Your Mother. Both did very good, realistic interpretations of laser tag. I think that, both of those are really cool episodes that we should reference back to. I'm a little surprised that Family Guy is as high as it is, but that would be our runner-up with a 9, and then an 8 for Two and a Half Men, and a 7 for Starfleet Academy, and everybody else try harder.
Well,
To
I mean,
quote
and
Alex at Laser Tag, who always says, "Hey, if you're rainbow, you're winning. If you're orange, you're this. If you're anything lower, try hard."
yeah, there you go. You know, so no, that's a perfect representation. And we need to revisit this with movies because I can't wait to talk
Yes.
about the hit list with with John Michael Vincent.
I
But
am game to watch some laser tag on the big screen now. But you know what? For even the episodes that didn't do it complete justice, I think it is awesome that it's being represented. It is such a touchstone in pop culture, which is obvious because all these mainstream TV shows are incorporating it because it is cool. It is something that everybody knows what laser tag is. Everybody relates to it. Everybody has an impression of what it is. If you've played it, you have a very specific idea. If you haven't, maybe your ideas are being formed a little bit by these TV shows, and maybe it inspires you to go on out and get in a game.
absolutely, which everyone should.
So this was really cool, and I enjoyed watching these and comparing notes with you. And so thank you for joining me for this little review of laser tag on TV, Jason Helton.
Thank you for having me. It's any opportunity to talk laser tag with anyone is great, but with you especially.
Love it. Thanks so much, Jason. Thanks for checking out this episode of Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Listen for more episodes on the first and third Friday of each month. Want to be a guest on an upcoming episode? Find out more and follow my blog and website at TiviaChickLovesLaserTag.com.